They were both chasing a mountain goat. Laughing and teasing each other, they ran wildly after the goat, even though they knew they couldn't even get close to it. The goat, irritated, leapt across small rocks on the mountain side and quickly vanished from sight. They both threw stones playfully in its direction and, laughing, sat down on a rock at the foot of the mountain. Between gasps for breath, one of them asked, "Jibran, riddle me this. It keeps running and never stops. What is it?" Jibran immediately replied, "Here we go with your riddles again. But this one's easy, I'll tell you. It's an aeroplane." The first boy laughed. "Idiot, an aeroplane doesn't run, it flies." "Then what is it?" Jibran leaned forward, scratching his temple, and guessed again, "A mountain goat, close, but no." The boy laughed even harder. "Okay, you tell me," Jibran said, frustrated. "Time," the boy replied. But before the words could settle, Jibran suddenly jumped off the rock and exclaimed, "Oh no, I totally forgot Mum told me to be back early. We're late." Jibran began hopping over round stones, running toward home. The other boy followed closely behind. On the other side of a grove of trees stood a small but well-kept, beautiful house with its front door wide open. Jibran stopped as he entered. In the courtyard, a graceful woman was taking dry clothes off the line. She looked about 40, wearing a simple yet elegant shell-war kameez unusual for the traditions of that mountainous village. On her feet were foreign slippers. This wasn't because she disliked her roots, but because after spending years in Scotland, she had grown distant from the cultural practices of her picturesque hometown, Gilgit. Still, those traditions lived in her heart, even though she no longer wore traditional clothing. She was used to lighter, more comfortable attire. Her name was Shahana. Turning around, Shahana looked at her son and then at her golden wristwatch. She raised her voice, "Jibran, you're 10 minutes late." "Sorry, Mom, it's the mountain goat's fault." Jibran blurted out before realizing he shouldn't have mentioned it. "Mountain goat? What do you mean?" she asked, narrowing her eyes. "Well, we were chasing a mountain goat," Jibran admitted sheepishly. Knowing he was in for a lecture, he braced himself, but to his surprise, she replied in a flat tone, "Stop being silly. Go to your room and start packing." "Okay, Mom," Jibran said, then turned to the other boy. "Are you packed yet?" Before the boy could answer, Shahana addressed him, "Daniyal, dear, you should go too. Your mother must be waiting. Our flight's tomorrow morning, help her with the packing." "Yes, Auntie," said Daniyal, nodding. He gently tapped Jibran's shoulder and walked away. The next morning, their flight to Scotland was scheduled. Jibran's father, Bilal Ahmed, had been working in Scotland for the past 20 years. Shahana was born in Scotland to a family from Gilgit, but her parents had sent her back to Pakistan in childhood so she could grow up in their ancestral village. She returned to Scotland at age 20 and married Bilal at 30. Shahana was visiting Gilgit after a long time, and Jibran had seen his ancestral village for the first time. He loved it and didn't want to leave, but was also excited to show Scotland to his cousin Daniyal. Daniyal was his uncle's son and 11 years old, a year older than Jibran. The two had become best friends. Thanks to Jibran's insistence, his father had managed to arrange a visitor visa for Daniyal. At 9 a.m., they bid farewell to their relatives at Islamabad airport and boarded the flight to the land of islands. It was Daniyal's first time on a plane, and he was full of wonder. Jibran enthusiastically explained everything to him throughout the flight. They talked, snacked, and even napped during the journey until the plane finally landed at Glasgow Airport. After the 13 to 14-hour long flight, they were exhausted. At the airport, Bilal Ahmed was waiting for them. Seeing him, Jibran ran and hugged him. "Papa, I missed you so much." "I missed you both, too," Bilal replied, hugging him back. "Papa, this is Daniyal. He's my best friend now." Jibran introduced him proudly. Bilal smiled and hugged Daniyal as well. "How are you, son? How was your first flight?" "It was amazing. So much fun," Daniyal replied instantly. They walked to the car where 5-year-old Irfan and 2-year-old Susan got out and excitedly hugged their mom and older brother. Shahana had left them in Scotland with their father. As they drove through Glasgow, Scotland's largest city, Daniyal was mesmerized by its charm and beauty. He loved it instantly. Bilal had bought a small but beautiful house in the suburbs. The front had a lovely garden. He parked the car and said, "Here's our little sweet home." Jibran quickly got out, ran along the narrow garden path to the front door, and turned around. "Papa, please throw me the keys." Bilal paused from unloading the suitcases and tossed the keys to Jibran, who caught them, unlocked the door, and shouted, "Donnie, come quick. I'll show you around." Daniyal followed. The house was so neatly decorated that Daniyal was amazed. Jibran gave him a full tour, and then they both settled into a room. Meanwhile, Bilal and Shahana chatted about their time in the village. After dinner, everyone went to sleep. The next morning, after breakfast, Bilal went to work while Jibran took Daniyal to the rooftop. "Jibran, don't you have any friends here?" Daniyal asked. "Not in the neighborhood, but I do have a good friend from school, Daniel, and one online friend, Fiona. She's about your age and lives with her mom in a small village nearby called Gilgit." Daniyal, who had never used a computer, didn't understand what an online friend was, so he asked. Jibran, amused by his innocence, explained everything in detail, how he had met Fiona online and become friends. "So you've never actually met her in real life?" Daniyal asked, surprised. "Nope," said Jibran. "But let's message her now. She told me to let her know when I return." They went to Jibran's room. He turned on the computer and messaged Fiona. She quickly replied, welcoming him back and asking about his trip to Pakistan and Gilgit. Jibran also told her about Daniyal. Fiona was happy to hear this and wanted to chat with him too, but when she learned Daniyal didn't speak English, she was a bit disappointed. Still, she invited both of them to visit her house. At lunch, Jibran mentioned Fiona to his mom and asked if he could visit her. Since it wasn't far, Shahana gave him permission. Later, his father also agreed. They decided to go the next morning. Early the next day, they took a short 10-minute bus ride to Gilgit. Finding Fiona's house wasn't difficult. She was already at the window, waiting for them. When she saw them approaching, she ran out and warmly welcomed them, shaking hands with both boys. To be continued, viewers, stay tuned with us to watch the next installment.